Welcome one and all, it's time for yet another spicy, red-hot, tingling, sizzling Age of Sigmar 4th edition battle report. This time, the Sons of Behemat are back on the menu. Tentacles, eyeballs and mouths, ready to roll. Up against the vile, disgusting, swamp-dwelling Kruleboyz. So you can see here from the video thumbnail that if you've not seen my Sons of Behemat before, they are heavily converted. And each one is from a different model. The one you can see on the thumbnail there is an actual Mega Gargant with some of the pieces in the wrong place, some of them entirely missing, and some of them replaced with hideous monstrosities like zombies out of its neck, eyeballs and tentacles, and a big mouth in its belly. So, let's dive into the game, shall we? And it is the Jaws of Galette, which means that over the course of the game, potentially, some of the objectives will go away, because the underdog can just remove objectives as the game goes on. So, what have I brought in this list to take on the Kruleboyz? Well, we've got King Brod immediately, and this one I'm using as King Brod here, with the dragon hand. This is actually a Mantic Giant, heavily converted though, so it's mostly Mantic pieces on this one. And King Brod obviously is a priest and has some prayers, and he seems to have been improved a bit since the last edition because, well, not in every way, but his prayers have definitely got better because you can use the same one repeatedly now instead of each effect only being once per game, which I always thought was a little bit weak in the last edition. But he does not have a ward save now, which is not very good. At least I can't see one. And in his regiment, we've got one Man Crusher Mini Gargant, which I believe is the one there with the two heads and the skeleton head on the other tentacle. So the Man Crushers, they're 160 points, and 3 of them are roughly the same amount of wounds as a Mega Gargant, and comparatively priced, except they're just no good. They're not much good at anything, except they do let you hold some objectives maybe, because it's multiple models and you can use them for taking the flanks or that kind of thing, taking objectives. Then, in the next regiment, it's 2 drops by the way, so in the second regiment we've got a Kraken Eater, which is this one here, with the big Kraken head on it. And obviously you can't go anywhere without an eyeball on your foot, as we know. So the Kraken Eater, I've tooled that one up. Actually, I've tooled up the Gatebreaker. The Kraken Eater does not have anything fancy on it, but it does have the ability to kick objectives, which is quite fun, as we know. And on a battle plan with disappearing objectives, it's going to be interesting to see how that plays in. The ability for me to kick the objectives into the same place, so then maybe if one of them gets deleted, I'll still have other objectives in that same spot. So that sounds good in theory. So we'll see if that actually works. And then the Gatebreaker here. Oh, by the way, I didn't tell you that the Kraken Eater is a Titan Forge Giant. It's been discontinued though, and the head on it is from the Mantic Kraken. So this one, that's Mega Gargant with Mantic zombies on it, and a Mantic something mouth in its belly, and various other bits from other manufacturers all over these things. So this one is the Gatebreaker. The Gatebreaker, of course, has its big, nasty 4+ attack that just does 1,000,000 mortal wounds, or mortal damage, should I say, in this edition, instead of a traditional attack. And it's quite distracting, these giant fingers reaching out from its armpit. I don't know what I was thinking there, very disturbing, but I think it looks cool. So I've given the Kraken Eater the Amber Stone Totem, which means the unit can run and charge once per battle. And then I've also given it the Rabble Rouser ability, which means that you can add 1 to charge rolls for friendly Sons of Behemat units while they're wholly within 12 of this one. So I'm going to keep this guy with at least one of my other Mega Gargants to give them the extra charge distance. Hello in the chat, I can see we've got Ratty, we've got Bob and Arav. Good evening. So, 3 Mini Gargants, nothing fancy about them. And into the Kruleboyz list. So, there are lots of Gut Rippers There's a big unit of 20 and there's another big unit of 20 on the other side as well. There are 2 units of 6 bolt boys. There are the monster killers, I think they're called, which is the unit here. They're obviously quite dangerous against monsters, as you would imagine with a name like that. There is a spellcaster there. There are 2 big sludgy creatures, one there and one on this side with the other gut rippers and the other bolt boys. So I'm going to go back to the wide shot a moment and give you a little overview of what my plan is for the game and how it's not actually that complicated at all. So there are 5 objectives. I would like to take all of them. I'm not worrying about being the underdog in this one. Sons of Behemat, I think you just got to jump onto the objectives, get into combat, start killing things. And that's what I'm going to try and do. We've got John in the chat as well. Good evening. So, King Brod and the Gatebreaker together are going to go into the middle and then see what's happening over there. And the Kraken Eater is going to try and go this way and try and get an early charge into that big unit of Gut Rippers. Because if you look at the monstrous rampage abilities that the Sons of Behemat army has... Oh, I didn't mention that it's the boss tribe, by the way. Which means that when one of the Mega Gargants fights, you can then choose another one, wholly within 12 inches, to also fight. So that's another reason for keeping 2 of them close together. But that is slightly hindered because I want to be in combat. Kruleboyz have various abilities to make you strike last, unfortunately. They have dirty tricks that they can also use for teleporting, and the Monster Killer unit as well have a way to make you strike last, I think, and also shut down your own rampages. So that's not going to be fun if they get into the action. So the Kraken Eater wants to go over there, and I was looking at the rampages, and there is a jump up and down, which against a unit that has lots of models in it, can just dish out loads of mortal wounds, especially with a Mega Gargant. So that sounds really good. And the little Gargants are mostly going to stay back on objectives or hug the flanks and try and get battle tactics. So in the first turn, it's going to be me. So I'm going to pick Take Their Land, and I choose this piece of terrain here. And I'm going to try and charge over there towards the Gut Rippers as well. And if I don't, then I'm just sitting by the terrain anyway, waiting to charge. 2 in the centre, King Brod and the Gatebreaker, have just walked onto the middle objective, and you can see that immediately the Bolt Boys have been teleported with a dirty trick in my turn into the middle of the table so that they can covering fire against King Brod, and they whittle down 8 wounds from him. You can see that I tried to do a prayer with Brod, but I didn't roll high enough, so he's just banked those 4 points for next time. So I've got all the objectives except that one, so it's going to be difficult for the Kruleboyz to score in the first round. And really they have to try and kill a Mega Gargant, because I failed my charge, by the way, as you can tell, because I'm not in combat. And if they can bring down 1 Mega Gargant per turn, then they're doing well. If they can't do that, then I've got a good chance of doing mass damage. So here we go, 10 points into the round, battle tactic and holding all the objectives in the world. Into round 1 for the Kruleboyz, and they're going to go for Take Their Land as well, and they're going to pick this objective here. And I think this is a bit of a risky manoeuvre because it's right between 2 Mega Gargants. The Kronspine is then summoned by a wizard, and this is the first time I've found out in this game that heroes that don't have any magic ability can use the places of power to become unbinders for the turn, which is quite good if you don't have any wizards, as I don't, because I didn't take the one, I think it is it's a Titanic trophy, I think, that gives you the ability to bring in manifestations. Let's see. The glowy lantern it is. So that wizard can use summon abilities as if it had the wizard 1. So the Kronspine is in. So that's going to be annoying. And I can see how this Gargant list would be helped significantly by the ability to bring in manifestations. If you could bring in a Kronspine to go alongside this slot, you'd be able to spread out your workload a bit, because each one is going to have to do quite a lot. So if you can tie something up with a Kronspine, that would be a big deal. You can see I'm getting shot again on King Brod, so he's all out defensing up, ready for the onslaught. But he's now lost 22 wounds already. But he's still alive. As you can see, there's a little mooning demon on a hand sticking out of his thigh. And for anyone eagle-eyed, you may notice that that is actually Yoda's face on the back of his leg there. So I took a little press mould of a tiny Yoda action figure and then made that out of green stuff and stuck it to his knee. Actually, there is one on his knee. I think there's one on the back of his leg, one on his, maybe one of his elbows, and there's another face on his knee. If we ever see him from the front, then you'll see that. And I kind of like this though. This little face, folding your arms there. You're not going to see much action facing the wrong way. And my opponent is rarely going to see most of the work that went into these things. So, you can see here that the monster killers have got into combat with King Brod, which obviously is bad news. They came from up here. Everyone else is just surrounding. And because my opponent does not charge into the Gatebreaker, I countercharge and use my final 2 command points. Which was not an obvious choice, because that means I can't use all-out defense on King Brod now. But I thought having 2 Gargants in combat is going to be more significant, because I can even pile in this way and hit the Bolt Boys and maybe kill them. So we'll see if this works out for me. And the Kraken Eater is attacked by the Gut Rippers, which I'm very happy about, so I can do more fighting. So King Brod has the Fight Last ability put on him, which isn't very friendly. And then the Kraken Eater jumps up and down, puts mortal damage onto the unit, kills loads of them that way, because there's 20 models in the unit, so you're rolling 20 dice and looking for 5s and 6s with Mega Gargants. And then when he does his attacks, he kills a ton of them as well. So there's only 7 left in the unit now, which is hilarious. Over here, King Brod and the Gatebreaker kill off quite a few of these Kruleboyz, but don't manage to take out a whole unit. The fact that I didn't have the command points remaining because I countercharged also meant that I couldn't all-out attack. So all the Gargant attacks are on 4s and 2s. So it's very easy to remember. And then they mostly have rend 2, and sometimes they get extra rend against certain unit types depending on the attack. But mostly 4s and 2s. So you're missing 50% of your attacks before you even roll to wound, unless you all-out attack. By the way, in case I didn't mention it, the General's Regiment, which has King Brod in it, only has 1 mini Gargant, because if you put another Mega Gargant into the General's Regiment, then an enemy unit, like for example these Bolt Boys, can make themselves +1 to hit and wound against 50% of your entire army. And I think that's too significant a power to give them. So that's why the General's Regiment is only Brod and 1 mini Gargant. So my opponent only scores 2 points for the round after failing to take this piece of terrain off me, because King Brod is still alive and the Kraken Eater is there, piled in towards it as well. So only 2 points for the Kruleboyz, so they will be the underdogs going into the next round and will thus be able to delete objectives. So with the priority roll here, if I get it, what's going to happen? Well, these Gut Rippers are going to die. The monster killers will probably die. I assume at least one of these units would try and countercharge, if it's my turn, to get more of them into combat, but the Gatebreaker's at full health at the moment. So, and even if you whittle down the Gatebreaker, you don't hinder his 4+ attack, where he just does loads of mortal damage, 50-50 chance attack. So no matter how much you wound him, he's still just as good at doing that. So that's going to be fun to roll a d6 and do 1,000,000 wounds at some point. If the Kruleboyz get the turn, what's going to happen? Everyone's going to pile into the Gatebreaker probably. Some more Strike Last is going to be dished out, but these guys are probably still going to die. You can see the Kraken Eater is down to 23 wounds from 35, and the Gatebreaker wasn't attacked at all, I don't think. So, the Kruleboyz take the next turn, which means that they can't do a battle tactic, so they're still going to be behind on points at the end of this turn. But looking at the state of the table here, the Kruleboyz obviously decide that it's so critical that they get the next turn, because they could just lose several units here. And I would be scoring big as well, obviously, because I still hold all the objectives. So you can see that King Brod gets whittled down further by shooting, and he's down to 9 wounds now. And I tried to do a counter prayer in the enemy turn, but roll a 1. So fails the prayer and then loses one of the prayer points as well. Very sad for King Brod. The Kraken Eater is about to be attacked by one of the sludgies. And then King Brod is down to 3 wounds, despite all-out defense, as he gets attacked. And then he dies. So all the shooting in the world, all the Bolt Boys focused on King Brod, and he's gone. So we're down 1 mega, which is very sad indeed. And this could be a quick game one way or the other, depending how it goes, depending whether I'm allowed to do my monstrous rampage and jump up and down and kill half of this unit before they even get to fight with the Gatebreaker. So Sludgy and the Gut Rippers have gone into the Gatebreaker, and the other Sludgy, I'm just going to keep calling them that because I can't remember which one's which. I'm sure they're slightly different, but generally they're giving out buffs like extra damage on the Gut Rippers, or extra mortal damage or something, or extra critical power. So look at those eyeballs. So by the time I painted this one, I think I pretty much got the hand of painting large eyeballs on Mega Gargants, because I think these ones look pretty good. The ones on the Gatebreaker, which is this guy, they look a bit basic because I did that one first. And then before I did this one, I actually looked up some tutorials on eyeball painting and took some lessons from those, and I think they look good. It does have a lot of eyeballs on it as well, so it's a good thing. And you can see that they're all fighting last as well. So the Kruleboyz seem like the nightmare matchup, and they haven't even taken the one thing that's the ultimate nightmare for Mega Gargants, which is the Killbow. The Beast Skewer Killbow that does, I think it's like 12 wounds to them. So, yeah, but outside of that, why are they a nightmare? Well, they do debuffs, and when you're debuffing a 500-point unit, that is very significant, and Gargants don't really do cheaper units than that, except the mini Gargants that no one wants to bother debuffing anyway because they're so rubbish. So debuffing Gargants is a big deal, so anytime you're against an army that specialises in debuffing you, that's quite significant. Putting Fight Last onto a 500-point unit is also a big deal. Putting Fight Last onto a unit that can lose some of its attacks if you take it below a certain wound threshold is also a big deal as well. And they teleport around as well, the Kruleboyz, which is quite annoying for Gargants to deal with, because really with the Gargants you want to get onto the objectives and then slowly close in on the enemy and crunch at them in a corner, hopefully, and they can't get out. But if they can just teleport and spread your forces out to chase them down, then that's going to be an issue. So I'm using all-out defense, of course, to try and keep the Gatebreaker alive, and he's taken 13 wounds from the first unit that attacks, which I think was Sludgy up there. And then takes another few wounds from the next unit. The Kraken Eater is down to 18 wounds after taking some hits there as well, and then down to 15 after the other unit. And then 13, in fact. So, the Gatebreaker decides that because he's been knocked down a threshold, he's not going to have as many attacks, so he's going to go for his 4+ 50-50 chance at doing 4d6 mortal damage to a unit, and he's going to put it on Sludgy, who can actually bodyguard away some of the wounds onto this unit. And the fact that they're all still alive at this point would suggest that the monster killers were able to shut down my rampage, which is very sad, because that would have killed a lot of them. But I think they could just do it on a 2+, which is very powerful. So, I succeeded with the 4+ roll, and then I rolled the 4 dice to see how much mortal damage it was going to inflict, and you can see 2 really good rolls, 2 really bad rolls, so it averages out. So it's about an average number of mortal damage, and quite a bit of it does get taken by Sludgy, and then he passes some of them on as well, onto the Gut Rippers. The Kraken Eater finishes off the Gut Rippers over here, with all-out attack, so that's nice. And the Kron Spine also charged into one of the mini Gargants this turn, and they did a bit of damage to each other. So, 2 points again for the Kruleboyz, because they haven't broken through the Mega Gargants yet, so I'm still well in the lead, but I have lost King Brod. Into my turn 2, and before that, this objective gets deleted by the Kruleboyz, who are the underdogs, so this mini Gargant is going to have to race to get involved in the game now. Then, my turn 2, I go for Do Not Waver, so I didn't really see a battle tactic that was going to be easy to accomplish that didn't deviate from my strategy too much. And my strategy is kill everything in combat. So I think, even though it's not very likely, the battle tactics are looking very tricky for me. So I'm not going to kill a unit in the enemy general's regiment, which I think this unit here, but they can teleport away, you see. So that's the issue with doing anything that picks a unit, because for the Kruleboyz, they can just vanish with a dirty trick. So the Kraken Eater kicks the objective closer to the enemy mass in the middle here, and then when he piles in, he stays on it and tries to beat up the sludgy there. You can see a whole bag of eyeballs on his belt as well. So the actual giant model that this was based on, it comes with this. It's like a sea giant. It's supposed to have an anchor in its other hand, and this hand has like a cannon that's been turned into a pistol, and that's a bag of cannonballs. So since I turned him into a giant tentacle eyeball beast, I thought, why not paint them as eyeballs instead? You can see the sea theme though, because he does have a shark there, and he's got a big bag of fish around his waist as well. Mini Gargant comes in, throws a rock, I think kills one of the monster killers, but isn't going to be able to succeed with the charge because it's too far away. Then I get both the Mini Gargants into the Kronspine. One of them did try to charge these Bolt Boys, but didn't make enough distance, so he just went into the Kronspine instead. So hopefully the two of them combined will be able to kill that. But no. The Kronspine kills one of the minis, and there's a failed battle tactic, because one of them died. So, I had 3 wounds left here. Could have possibly tried to retreat from combat with this one, because it's a 2/3 chance that he would survive that. And this one, by the way, is another Titan Forge model. It's like an orc, some kind of orc, ghostly orc king on a throne. So I've kept the giant that carries the slab, and then I've taken away the throne and used a Bad Squiddo portal and a Fenris Games tentacle flute playing thing as well. And this one is Dungeons and Lasers, this giant, with various different heads attached to it. So the Kronspine not even dead yet. So it's holding its own against 2 Mini Gargants, which combined are 320 points, by the way. So I don't think the minis are very good value. The megas definitely seem to be where it's at. So Kraken Eater still going at it with Sludgy, and takes some more damage, and doesn't dish a lot back out, unfortunately. Then the Gatebreaker has Fight Last put on him again, and now he's dead. So it's definitely game over at this stage. I've only got the Kraken Eater left. And, well, I've also got this Mini Gargant and this one, but they're not going to do anything on their own. So I score 4 points. So I'm still well in the lead, but that's not going to last long, because the Kraken Eater's only got 5 wounds left, and because I've always been in combat, I haven't been able to rally them particularly. So, and I feel like the momentum with the Sons of Behemat is quite important, because once you start losing a lot of wounds, more than you can recover with rally, for example, then it's downhill from there. You have to make the most of their health while it's still high, I think, and try and put them to work, and use rallies when they're available, because I think there was one opportunity for me to rally with King Brod in this game, and I didn't, because he'd only taken 8 wounds, so I didn't want to use a command point on it. And I ended up using 2 command points on a countercharge, which did kill some of them, but meant I couldn't all-out defense. So the fact that you only get 4 command points, and half of them would countercharge, which is what you'll want to do because you want to get more of these guys into combat, means that you only have 2 left for an all-out defense and an all-out attack. So if you're all-out defense in the shooting phase, that means you're not doing both of them in combat. And you want to all-out attack because you don't have very good hit rolls. So I'm thinking maybe the list construction, maybe I could put another one in the General's Regiment, and then give that one +1 to hit and wound against units in the enemy General's Regiment. That could be worth exploring. So, 4 points. And into the next round. And I decided to go next, because otherwise I think the game just ends immediately, because this guy would get shot to death, and then I've only got 2 Mini Gargants left. So, I get first crack at round 3, but it means I can't do a battle tactic, which I'm okay with, because I'm still alive for now. Kraken Eater is going to try and kill Sludgy. Mini Gargant's going to try and kill the Kronspine. And the Kraken Eater does not succeed, because he gets covering fire to the face, to one of his many faces, and he's dead. the mini Gargant charges into the monster killers and gets countercharged by the gut rippers, and then Fight Last is placed on him and he dies. So there's one mini Gargant left, and I score 4 points because I was still holding some of the objectives. I'm still holding this one and this one for the time being. So it's a decent lead, but if the Kruleboyz have any battle tactics they can do without enemy models on the table, then they're definitely going to walk away with it now. So my opponent in turn 3 goes for Slay the Entourage, because the final mini Gargant up there is actually in the General's regiment. So Sludgy moves out so that the flanks can be claimed on a battle tactic later, and these guys just get to the centre, so Seize the Centre can be used later as well. And then the Kronspine and Boltboyz, who teleport over there, start shooting my mini Gargant, and he's dead. So I don't have anything left. Let's see if the Kruleboyz can overtake me now. So they get 10 points for that turn, and it's not looking particularly good for the Sons of Behemat at this point. And yep, can't do anything in my turn. Enemy turn, take the flanks, so that's going to be another 10 points. And then round 5, Seize the Centre or take their land. I think that one was already used. It must have been Seize the Centre it's supposed to be on. So there you go. It turns into a comfortable win for the Kruleboyz after falling behind early. And what have we learned here? Well, I don't think mini Gargants are very good. I think mega Gargants are very good, but our Kruleboyz just a hard counter to them. Putting Strike Last on a mega Gargant is a huge deal. And you've only got, if you're taking all megas, you've only got 4 of them at best. So what would be a way of counteracting the dirty tricks of the Kruleboyz with the mega Gargants? Because you don't have very good shooting attacks. So you want to get into combat, and then you have Strike Last bot on you, quite easily as well. And you can't necessarily get through to the Boltboyz, because there's screens in front of them. So it's a tricky one. Let me know any veteran Sons of Behemat players out there in this edition, or any Kruleboyz players as well. What do you think is a way that the Giants could get into the Kruleboyz and actually cause some damage? Obviously the Rampage, the jump up and down, cleared off most of this unit and they ended up all dying, so that worked out okay. But the monster killers just seem to be a really good choice for shutting down those Rampages. So just seems like they're kitted out to deal with the Sons of Behemat at the moment. And this is even without the Killbow, which is the hard counter to them definitely. So a difficult first game for the Sons of Behemat, but a good test for them, seeing what the rules are like in this edition. I like the way that the brackets that monsters go through now are much more simplified. You don't have to look at 4 different values for how much damage they've taken. There's just one, and it'll just say something like, if 15 damage points have been allocated to this unit, then one of the attacks will lose 2 of the attacks of the 6. So it's just not quite as good at hitting things when it's heavily wounded, which is fine, and they lose a little bit of their control score as well. So not very complicated anymore. They all have the same hit and wound on their attacks, which is nice and easy. The abilities are nice and thematic as well, the jump up and down, the Kraken Eater stuffing them into his bag, which weirdly is way worse than the Stardrake's ability that's very similar, because the Kraken Eater has to roll double your wounds characteristic to put you in the bag. The Stardrake just has to roll equal or greater than your wounds characteristic, at least for now. If the Stormcast book comes out in a few weeks and they totally change that, then we shall see. And that'll be a good test to find out actually if the Battletome releases are going to drastically change any of the rules, particularly the War Scrolls, that they were only just selling very recently for the Stormcast and the Skaven, and could potentially immediately be replaced with totally different rules. So that would be interesting. We'll have to see on that one. So, Sons of Behemat, it was fun to play though. This was a very quick game. It was less than an hour and a half of gameplay. My turns were very, very quick. Just move a few big models, roll a few dice. It's not that many attacks, they're just multi-damage attacks, so it's very quick to roll as well. Just very speedy army to play. Anyone who's maybe getting into Age of Sigmar and wants really cool advanced modelling opportunities, and also doesn't want to paint loads of different miniatures, and wants their games to go quickly, I would say Sons of Behemat could be the army for you. Very, very quick, and because they're giants, I found them a lot of fun to convert over the years, a lot of fun to paint them. and a lot of fun to sculpt eyeballs on as well. Right, let's go back to the thumbnail. So let me know if you've got any thoughts on the list, any thoughts on Sons of Behemat list building in general. Obviously, it was the glowy hat, wasn't it? Seems like an obvious choice, so you can bring a manifestation like a Kronspine, for example, which would help out a lot. Other than that, what are some good choices, do you think? Do you like any of the other tribes? Do you like King Brod's Stomp in this edition? I had a quick look at them. I didn't feel they had quite enough going on for them compared to the other tribes, so I didn't go for them this time, but maybe in the future. And yes, give me your thoughts on the factions so far in Age of Sigmar, how you think they're shaping up. What do you think of the Kruleboyz? They're much trickier than they were, I feel like. They don't do mortal damage on shooting anymore. That's gone away mostly in the game, which is nice. But they are very sneaky, which is how they should be. But is it too much, being able to put Strike Last out so easily onto monsters? Is it too much indeed? Okay, don't forget to like the video, of course. Thanks for all of those of you who have been watching along. You can see the number of viewers has been pretty steady throughout. And, of course, don't forget to check out all the links in the description as well. There's going to be non-stop content coming towards you very, very soon. There is an Old World event this weekend, and straight after this video, I need to finish painting Ungrim, the young Slayer King, to get him ready for tomorrow. So I've got a few hours to get him done. It's only base coats at the moment, so it's going to be a race against time tonight. And then, after that, in a couple of weeks, it's Clash of Kings, the big massive Kings of War tournament, 200 plus players in Nottingham. That's going to be very exciting. And then of course every week there'll be at least one battle report, either Old World or Age of Sigmar. I try and time it so that if there's an Old World event I do an Age of Sigmar battle report, and if there's an Age of Sigmar event I do an Old World battle report, just to keep balance between the two. And then if Mr. Remington Steele is available for a game of Old World, then generally I would do Age of Sigmar at the gaming club, so we've got one of each in the week as well. And other videos coming up. I'm going to do a video on pinning metal miniatures, is still sitting there waiting for me to edit. And I'm going to do something on my pile of shame, which is more like lots and lots of boxes and crates and tubs of shame. All the miniatures that are either totally untouched, partly assembled, or partly painted, that are being neglected over the years. And that's going to be quite a long video because there are a lot of them. And maybe it'll inspire me to hurry up with the painting. I don't paint that fast, even though I have a lot of armies. It does take me a long time to paint things. So let's wrap this video up. Don't forget, obviously, to check out the social media shenanigans in the description below. And if you want to keep this non-stop wargaming content flowing towards you, then why not pledge your entire life savings on the Patreon or PayPal? The link down there as well. And if you can't afford your entire life savings because you need food and other boring things like that, then a portion is a good compromise. If you can't afford to just shovel over 100% of your funds, I will accept that people do need to occasionally eat and pay rent. I'll allow it, just this once. Okay, all that remains to be said at this point is, good night out there, whatever you are.